This is the Tuesday, January 12th, 2021 meeting of the Flemington Planning Board being held in conformance to the Open Public Meeting Act virtually using the Zoom webinar platform due to the COVID-19 emergency. Ask everyone please to rise as you are able for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, liberty and justice for all.
And I forgot to do this before, but I have a gavel, so we have a gavel.
Ooh.
We're in.
Oh,
Yes.
that's not
Nice.
fair. That's not.
High
I have
tech.
used my hand since March.
Since high
So-
school, I've had this thing in a drawer, so it's okay.
I will duel you. I will see your gavel and raise you one.
There you go. Eileen, please call the roll.
Mayor Driver?
Here.
Mr. Long?
Here.
Mr. Campion?
Here.
Mr. Dashna?
Here.
Mrs. Engelhardt?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Budney?
I am here.
Mr. Hain?
Here.
Ms. Giffen?
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Norton?
Here.
Ms. Kaczynski?
Here.
And Mr. Clerico, Ms. McManus, and Mr. Troutman have all been excused for the night.
Okay, thank you. Item number 1 on the agenda, period of public comment. Eileen, has anything been received in the inbox?
No, not in public comments. There was a spam, there's nothing substantive.
Do we have any members in the attendee window?
No, we do not.
Going once, twice. Okay, moving on to the next item of the agenda, mayor's comments.
I have nothing this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Driver. Mr. Long, council comments.
I actually do not have anything to report at the moment.
Can you let us know what action was taken in regards to an application that might come before this board?
Oh, yeah.
Council?
Yeah, the 26th, you'll see it. It was the confirming of the consistency with the urban renewal project, the draft site plan. Sorry, that's a big deal. So that's coming along. That'll be along next time. So that we just approved it. We found that it was consistent as far as what we have been seeing the whole time, and it's now in the planning board's hands. We hand it off to you.
Well, it's actually not in our hands yet because there's been no site application made, but that will at some point come. Susan, did you have a question there?
You're referring to the Union Hotel redevelopment, right?
Yes.
That it was,
Yep.
You didn't actually state that, so I just wanted to
Oh, sorry.
say
Yeah.
that for the record. Yeah,
It was being alluded to.
it needs to be made very clear. This board has not received any application from the applicant. So we can't say something's going to be on our agenda when we haven't even received an application, which is what we discussed last time too.
Right, we will act on it if and when any application comes in, but letting us know that resolution did pass through council is something we do need to know that that's something that might be coming down sooner than later. So thank you for that. Okay, Hpc comments. I got a note earlier from Hpc that they are they had nothing for this evening's meeting. They are having their reorganization on the 20th. They are looking for a few more, there's a few vacancies. So I'm asking mayor and council liaisons, help us spread the word. We want to make sure that there are people for HPC, and if anyone's watching the recording and you are interested, please reach out to the mayor if that's something of interest. Susan, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because the HPC is a advisory commission to us. Emily stepped down and, because of personal reasons to take care of her family. And we lost a very good HPC member in her. And I just wanted to thank her for her service the last 2 years. And hopefully we can get someone as good, if not better, to volunteer. We really would appreciate it.
If I can ask, Mayor, is there a plan to kind of publicize vacancies on boards and commissions for the borough, looking for volunteers? Is that something you're thinking?
Yeah, so I kind of leave that in the hands of the liaisons to publicize. We are starting a citizens committee this year. There will be a volunteer recruitment aspect of that. So hopefully that'll help. A year ago, about this time a year ago, myself and a couple of council members were kicking around a community fair to recruit volunteers and introduce community members to our sewer utility and water utility and all that stuff. And well, then COVID came along.
It's not a bad idea. All right, so I'll send a note to Kim Tilley and ask if we can work together to on that as well then. Anything else under HPC? Okay, item 5 on the agenda, approval of the minutes from the January 5th, 2021 reorganization meeting. Do I have a motion and a second for the minutes?
I'll move.
Budney, second. Second, Haynes. Nope.
Is there any discussion or corrections on the minutes? Please call the roll.
Mayor Driver,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Mrs. Engelhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Budney,
Yes.
Mr. Hain,
Yes.
Ms. Giffen.
yes,
Thank you.
Item 6 on the agenda, Resolution 2021-04 regarding the Open Public Meeting Acts. Kara, can you explain why we're doing this again? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Every year or the beginning of the new year, every Board of Adjustment or joint board acting as a Board of Adjustment is required to review all of the variances that were granted during the prior
No, we're
year.
talking about item 6, the why we have to revote on the OPMA one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're looking at the old agenda.
I am looking at the old agenda. You're absolutely right. So the new Open Public Meetings Act is just to, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and my apologies, I have the wrong agenda in front of me. It's just so we can identify the virtual aspect of what is going on here. Every year we do an annual resolution identifying the meeting dates, identifying where they will be posted and what the actual dates are. Because we're going to be doing for the foreseeable future these virtual meetings, we are just adopting and will republish a resolution outlining the manner in which every virtual meeting will be held. And that's what this resolution does.
Right, so we're literally voting on the same resolution as we did last time, but we forgot the Zoom link and information. So that's really
correct.
all that this is. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So move, Haynes.
Second, Cook.
Any discussion? Susan?
Just very quickly, I was going through my calendar, adding all our dates in, and the June 22nd meeting, there's actually 3 parents on this board that have graduating seniors that day.
That's
So,
graduation?
yeah, it's
Now,
the
yeah.
night versus the day, so it's probably not a problem, but we do want to probably keep that in mind as the agenda gets set that week or a week or two before, just in case.
Just in case the Zoom meetings cross.
Exactly. Don't say
Possible,
that.
Bite your tongue, bite your tongue.
Listen, I had to get, it took me to pull teeth to get Benjamin to go to his graduation. I don't think I might have any luck with Samuel if it's going to be on Zoom.
No.
All right, anybody, any other question or discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Hain,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mayor Driver,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Mrs. Engelhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Budney,
Yes.
Ms. Giffen,
yes,
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Norton.
yes,
Thank you.
Item 7 on the agenda is a discussion of the 2020 annual report. So Kara, we can rewind and replay.
Let's rewind and replay. So, the beginning of every year, the zoning board or a joint land use board acting in its capacity as a zoning board is required to review the prior variances and action that was taken in order to determine whether any recommendation should be made for changes to the zoning ordinance to the governing body. So for instance, if they received a number of applications in a particular district for a front yard setback variance, the board may decide to recommend to the governing body that it reduce the front yard setback because it seems like that's a trend and seems like something that may be worthwhile to amend in the ordinance. So what you have in front of you is a list of the action that Eileen put together that the board took throughout all of last year. And all we need to do is just have a discussion to see whether any of that action prompts a recommendation to the governing body for changes to the zoning ordinance.
So we're not going to, we'll deal with the resolution after. At this point, let's just have, I think it's appropriate just for us to have an open discussion on the report, and I hope everyone had a chance to read it. And I'm going to just open it up for anyone who has anything they want to question, comment, clarify. Susan?
Okay, yeah, I just needed to check to see. I'm not muted, right? Yeah.
Good.
You're good.
Okay. Okay, I went through the list and I always love this, by the way, every year for those board members that have not experienced this, in that it really makes you look back and remind yourself what were goals that we had at the beginning of the year and goals that we, want to do for next year. So this is actually a really great opportunity. I noted 5 items in the yearly report. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to look at my notes and not at the camera. First was on February 3rd, when we had the overlay for the clubs and the theater. I think we just need to, this is more of a reminder for a to-do. In the master plan, we want to make sure that, we did state that it was consistent with the master plan, but I want to make sure we take another look at that zoning and make sure that everything that we do want to recommend to the councils in there. So just kind of a note for the master plan committee to take a look at those particular uses and see if it's, appropriate in the master plan going forward. Same thing for that April 28th note. We talked about outdoor dining and social services, and we had motions on both of those. And I want to make sure that, like I said, we did state that they were consistent with the master plan, but we may want to consider looking at those 2 items when we're doing our master plan update this year, and make sure that the wording in our master plan for both of those items is updated and the way we want it to be. Just a reminder, the master plan is a fluid document. So things that we experienced this year and 5 years ago up to now can all be kind of updated and incorporated. Same thing goes for the June meeting when we had the billboard review, the electronic sign that's actually, I noticed that, driving around the circle, they have that construction area enclosed and it's looking pretty clean and good right now. We'll see how the construction goes along. And I know we also have an area for public art, which has been a discussion item in the master plan for many years now. I want to make sure that the master plan committee takes a look at those 2 items, those 2 issues, and make sure that we don't have any additional recommendations to council to update or change ordinances regarding those 2 issues. The last 2 items was done in July and September that I have comments on regarding the yearly report. In July, we had the global ag redevelopment plan amendment recommendations that we sent up to council. And in September, we had some, again, minor Union Hotel amendments that we sent up to council for them to review. And in both cases, the week after we sent those up to council, I made a point to listen to the council meetings live. And this is definitely something I want to make sure that we sit down with Jeremy in particular and kind of make sure that we maybe consider doing things a little differently in years to come. In both of those cases, those plans have been around for years. And it occurred to me when I was listening to the discussion of council the week after we sent them both the Global Ag and the Union Hotel amendments, which were really minor amendments, the items that we sent up, the council, because realistically, a lot of times council rotates almost every 2 years with, there's always somebody new. It's not that we don't rotate as well, but it's not as often, obviously, because there's elections every couple of years with the council. And I felt like maybe perhaps when we make recommendations to council, we consider perhaps sending our own liaison up to just be able to answer any Q&As that come on the fly during the meeting. Because there were so many times where I was kind of talking to them going, no, that's not what we meant, or it's trying to kind of send brainwaves. If there's questions for the planning board, we could answer them on the fly. And I think that might help. I know there was one really minor question about a visual terminus. And it was like a 45 or 1 hour discussion. And that item actually was something that was discussed maybe 6 or 7 years ago in a meeting that actually Jeff and I were both at. But I couldn't tell anybody that via Zoom through the camera. So I'm thinking maybe we have a discussion with Jeremy and the mayor about perhaps when we do send things up for recommendations to council, ordinance changes too, that maybe we want to select somebody to go up and kind of answer any questions on the fly if needed, so that there's somebody there, just like we have the HPC rep come and answer any questions for us every week when needed. I think that might help, because a lot of times over the years, my experience is that sometimes we'll send recommendations up to council and they get busy with other things, and it just kind of says, oh, okay, we'll do that next month or the month after that. I think maybe if we're sending recommendations up, that we should kind of put our money where our mouth is and support those recommendations. So those are my 5 comments for the yearly report that I saw.
Thanks. Well, we can take that under consideration, Susan, and we can meet about it. I
Right.
don't necessarily agree
Mhm.
with some of what you said, but this isn't the format to discuss that.
Okay.
So, but no, let's Jeremy, myself, and you and Jeff should get together and discuss that.
Right. That's why I suggested that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other folks with comments, observations, suggestions, things that we want to send up to council as part of this conversation? Okay, not seeing anything. We then have a resolution, right, Kara?
That's correct. We do have a resolution, and basically the findings and recommendations are blank. We can amend it on the record, and then I can go back after the meeting and input the information, whatever the recommendations are going to be, based upon a motion, a second, and a vote. And then we can have this signed as necessary. From what I heard, I don't know if someone wants to make a motion for whatever recommendations that were placed on the record by Susan, or if there's anything else. I know there wasn't any other discussion, but if there's any other recommendations to be included.
The only other thing and again, I don't want to jump out of order on the agenda, because we are talking about the annual report here. We do want to talk about, we have as the next item on the agenda, we do want to talk about application submission checklist items. And that may also be something that we go to council. Now, that may not be something that, and I don't know, Kara, if that needs to be separate than the annual report, because it's not something that was in the annual report.
Exactly, and I
If it's
think
better, a
that-
letter might be a separate thing than this. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, and I think that we shouldn't commingle the two. I think that there's a very specific directive and statute that requires us to do this annual report and resolution, and that's what we should be focusing on right now.
Okay.
I heard some, very well put comments that Susan made about looking at the master plan, but again, that's something that's really solely within the purview of the planning board. And, comments with regard to liaisons and other things that it seems like maybe everyone discussed offline. The other thing I want to say is the billboard that's referred to in June, and then again in August is the one that has yet to come before the board. We're still trying to work on finalizing completeness and getting the access issue resolved. And then I think that was the last of the comments. So I would center this solely around the action taken last year and comments with regard to that. Certainly the board can make other recommendations to the council at any time of things that it would like to consider, ordinance amendments it would like to recommend. But let's keep this with the statute 70.1 and just focus on that for right now.
Susan, please.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Kara. You are absolutely right. The item in June was not the billboard on the circle, but the other one that's we have an application for right now. I think it was just a matter of me. It reminded me that it's something in general that we should look at for in the master plan in the future, not any specific site, but just billboards in general. And Jeff, the definitely, I think the item that you were talking about, we should discuss during agenda item 9 and not now.
Yep. No, then that's fine. I just want to, yeah. So right now, so Kara, what recommendations do you have there that would go into that where you've got, after the last whereas? Is there anything there?
We don't really need to make any. Again, if what I'm hearing is that the planning board's going to look at the master plan with regard to some of these issues, which again, it can do. If we're going to talk offline about some sort of liaison, and if the master plan billboard issues are going to be focused on, I really don't see anything. And what we could certainly do is, indicate in that last whereas before section A, the board hereby does not feel the need to make any findings of fact and recommendations to the board based upon review of the 2020 action, and leave it at that.
And that's consistent with statute language. Okay. All right. So if that's the proposed language, do I have a motion and a second as amended kind of on the fly to adopt that resolution?
I'll move.
Second, Budney.
Okay. So again, just for clarification, we are essentially saying we are not making any recommendation to council based on our review of the board. That's the report. That's essentially where we're at. Okay.
Correct. And again, just based upon, because if you look at the statute itself, as Eileen has in the report, it says at least once a year review its decisions and adopt a report on findings and provisions for the subject of requests and recommendations for zoning ordinance amendments or revisions, if any. So this resolution is incorporating what Eileen put together, and based upon that, there, again, from what I'm hearing, aren't any recommendations or for ordinance amendments based upon that action.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Okay. Seeing none, Eileen?
Mrs. Engelhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Budney,
Yes.
Mayor Driver,
I think the mayor was muted.
Yes.
sorry.
There she is.
And I missed, Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Heen,
Yes.
Ms. Giffen.
yes,
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll make those changes, circulate it to Eileen, and she can circulate it for execution.
Thank you all. All right, item number 9. It's actually 2 separate issues. I want to take them in order for discussion. First is on application submission. We talked briefly about this at last meeting. I asked that we put this on the agenda for, given the fact that we are all remote, given all the fact that because of which we all now have digital devices as members of the board, iPads, and in an effort, please, to be a bit more green and sustainable and to save substantial real cost to applicants. We had talked, my pipe dream is to have us go entirely digital submission, but an intermediate step, of course, is for us to realistically think about what we actually need in terms of physical copies and things like that. So Kara, what do you have from that?
So, I mean, really, as far as my understanding, Eileen, we require how many copies currently?
We require 25 sets of plans.
Okay. And I know you and I had spoken about this, and at least as of right now, if every board member is getting a hard copy, we basically use up, and the professionals are each all getting a hard copy, we use up all of those 25, correct?
Yes, and they were also distributed to water department, the sewer department, the HPC, the fire marshal, the police, the zoning officer, the township engineer. So all of them are distributed at this point. There's nothing extraneous, but I don't know. Shade Tree Commission, Environmental Commission also.
And then a copy for public review, I'm assuming, is one of those, right? Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, really, it's the board's pleasure. I mean, we should discuss maybe what the board members themselves need. I certainly think we need hard copies. Obviously, in this virtual age, we are also posting them online, that we will continue to do. But it may be helpful to look outside of the board and see if these representatives from these different departments, see what their take on it is. If we really want to try and minimize the hard copies. At least we've determined that we don't have any superfluous copies at this point. I know a lot of times you've got boards that have, 10 extra copies sitting around. That, of course, is unnecessary. But it seems to me like, at least for the list that we have, we're only asking for what we currently need. But, it's the board's pleasure. And like I said, maybe there are some people that want hard copies, some people that would prefer to be paperless. But I think it would be helpful to ask the other people that get them what they would prefer.
So let me ask, okay, so that's helpful. And I also want us to be guided by not only what we're doing right now in Zoom space, but like what we're going to want when we're back sitting up on the dais in person in Borough Hall, right? And for those who have served a long time, there's literally no room to have every member of the board have their own plans open up. You have to share, right? Yeah. So I don't know what people think of it. My preference is clearly digital, but I also think that having a couple sets of site plans sitting up at, up there for review at a meeting isn't the worst idea in the world. But that could also be the copy that sits in Borough Hall for public review. It need not necessarily be a distinct copy of a particular member. I know that Clerico is going to want his own, hard copy.
Full-sized, yeah.
And that's fine. And we also, we do need to have some physical copies of signed stamped drawings, and that there's requirements there for those engineering things as well. But what do folks here think about what do you think your life, forget, now, but also what do you think going forward?
For purposes of having a hard copy plan, 9 times out of 10, specifying a reduced set would be perfectly fine. You either can word it as saying a half size set or just an 11 by 17 copy. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to give you, the information that you need, especially if you're at home at your table or at the in Borough Hall. Just have something in front of you, and then also have a backup digital copy if you need to want to zoom in on something real tight. So that's my buy. I think if we're going to have some paper copies, at least have some half sets or reduced sets.
So
We've
Beth,
had
one
several
of the
boards that I've
things-
worked with that have done the same thing, the half size, the 11 by 17s work pretty well.
And for Jeff, for when we get back into Borough Hall, because I am optimistic that at some point that will happen. I was kind of like thinking that the borough might want to invest in a projection system, and then you could put the stuff up on a screen. We'd have to kind of figure out where in Borough Hall that could go, and that's been kind of one of the blocking points. But it is something that I've wanted to do, and kind of went COVID away.
Yeah,
otherwise we
and
would've had it.
that's always been a challenge. Having, I mean, we use a portable projector and people are craning their necks to see, members of the public can't see. It's definitely an
So-
investment.
We have a rather large screen TV. I think it's like a 65-inch. I don't know if you've been in Borough Hall lately. And in council room, there is that really large screen TV with the computer. That could also be used.
Okay.
And then, you have a little laser and.
Yeah.
Rather than a printer, just use that large screen TV.
Yep, Susan, I'm sorry, I saw your hand up before.
I was just gonna say, Jim probably can relate to this more, and I understand why Clerico needs the larger plans. Civil plans tend to be much larger than anything else. Karen would also relate to this. Sorry, Karen, I didn't mean to forget about you as well, being a civil engineer. So I get it. I know that New Jersey does have rules now that the signing and sealing can be digital. So I think that I would defer to maybe Jim and Karen on what the rules are for that in Clerico, but so we might be able to waive that rule. Basically, I think I brought this up the last time. One of the things that we did this summer was changed our bylaws to make sure that all of our members of the planning board were open to have access electronically. And if you weren't willing to access information electronically, essentially you can't be a member of the planning board. But that's not necessarily the bylaws for some of these other commissions that have multiple people on them, like the Hpc and the Viro, and I don't want to speak for them. And I can't remember the exact subject, but I remember Karen mentioning once, we have to have the set of drawings and share it with all the members. So there's definitely some logistics with the other commissions. So I'm fine with it all being digital. I really love it to be, because I save all the drawings of every planning board application that we've done that has not been actually built in this town. So it's all in my dining room. So I still would love it. And frankly, even last year, I was referring to anything electronic that I could at the dais, because it's just easier. So I like everything all digital, but I do think we need to defer to some of our commissions and make sure that if they need hard copies, that they get hard copies. I think it's only fair to them. But, I do want to remind everybody that as far as this board goes, we purposely put those bylaws into effect to make sure that everybody, is willing to access everything electronically for that reason.
So, okay, so other folks who I want to just, maybe everyone has a chance to jump in. Like, what do you need to see when you're looking at a site plan? The mayor, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to Susan's point, about like the different, environmental and all that. Those volunteers don't have iPads assigned to them. Some of them don't even have borough emails. So I think, those commissions, I could see eliminating hard copies for, planning board members and that, but I think beyond that, expecting that the different commissions and water and sewer, they're going to need hard copies for that kind of stuff. I don't think we can expect them to keep it all digital.
Right. So I don't think we can go full digital. I mean, that I think it's a question of how much we can reduce the burden on applicants. Yeah, Jeremy, please.
Yeah, I mean, just from my personal experience, I just remember I would go get my mail And the planning board stuff was always like, it's a ton of stuff in comparison to my other mail. But I personally, and I don't know if this is for anyone else, but I can actually go to Borough Hall and just look at it, examine it if there's a copy there. I don't know if this is an idea, but for any, to kind of reduce all that, and certainly, you know, what the mayor's talking about, some people just don't have the digital access, but I can go to Borough Hall and just look at this stuff and kind of examine it and take pictures of certain things that you know, are a focus. But I don't necessarily need like the big plant, you know. I don't know how many of us, but that's just me. You know, that's just my perspective on it. I just wanted to toss that out there.
Yeah, Karen, please.
Much as I personally love enormous drawings, like Susan and Jen, I just love to. They are unwieldy in some respects, and I like Brian's point that smaller scale ones are handier to tote around to the meeting, and if you want to zoom into details, we could use the electronic versions we have. So I'd certainly be open to that. I know we will need, like Susan said, some certified copies, some signed and sealed drawings in some respects, but whether we need 25 copies of that certainly could reduce the burden on our applicants, because they're quite expensive to produce. So I'm certainly open to that option for going forward. Like Susan said, for the commissions, and my driver said that they probably don't have the same access, but it's certainly something that we could ask of them to see what they would prefer before maybe they can all access. Maybe that would, the problem that Susan referenced that I'd mentioned previously with having only one hard copy for a commission would be negated by having electronic versions for them to review individually. So, but like you say, we have to work out that they have sufficient access to view those.
Yeah, Kara, please. You're muted.
Something else we can also think of is, I think that where a lot of the cost ends up getting tied up is when 25 copies are provided and the completeness review starts, and then there needs to be a change. And a lot of times they will just redo the entire set because it's easier than just changing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, coming back and making the insertions. So maybe something else to consider that I've seen in some other ordinances are to require a smaller number for purposes of completeness. And then once it's been deemed complete, then do however many full sets to go to all the different commissions. And so you know that what's ultimately being provided to them is, you know, complete, quote unquote, for purposes of that. And then we're not doing it twice, because I know that can also get very cumbersome. And, you know, I know when I represent applicants, that's one of the things that drives them crazy. So that's something else to think about. And I could certainly point to some ordinances that do that. I believe Town of Clinton is one of them. I believe they only require 4 or 5 up front, and then full number later on. But I can certainly provide, you know, the board with some language for something like that, if that's something you're interested in as well.
I think that's something worth looking at. Susan, please.
Sorry, there was something else that I thought of, and that is sometimes applicants submit things to us in real time, like at Borough Hall when we actually had real meetings in person. And I want to make sure that whatever, you know, ordinance, is that what we're calling this?
It's a checklist. It would have to be changed.
Okay, check.
Yeah.
Right, and yeah, I don't want to call it the wrong thing, but whatever this is defined as, that we do still allow in-person submissions. I think in addition with Zoom meetings, I would assume they can present exhibits, if, you know, just like we've given them, they could present new exhibits electronically on Zoom meetings as well. So I think we need to make sure that whatever we do, that it's clear they have that option still, whether it's in a virtual meeting or an in-person meeting, because that happens once in a while too.
The only clarification I would make is that if there is an exhibit that an applicant plans to submit, The law is requiring it to be posted at least 2 days, and most towns are doing it at least 10 days, in order to comply with that requirement, so there's no question. I don't disagree with you that if something happens to come up by way of a question of a board member during a meeting, it's not something that was anticipated, not something the applicant was going to rely upon, but it would be helpful to the board that yes, it may come up ad hoc during the meeting itself. But we just have to make sure that we're complying with that proportion of the new virtual laws as well.
Is that, and let me just ask for clarification on that, Kara. So in the past, it's been very obvious that applicants come to us already knowing that night that they have hey, we've revised this one page, here you go. We didn't know they were going to be doing that, but they obviously came prepared. Are you saying that now with these new laws won't even allow them to do that? They have to know ahead of time, 2 days before, that they're going to basically spring something on us?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, because people have to have the opportunity to either come to Borough Hall and take a look at the hard copy, view it online. So really, and it's obviously going to be hard to make this distinction. And I have to be honest, both in my board work and my applicant work, I haven't seen anyone spring it on a board. They've really tried to do a very good job of making sure. I mean, we've even gotten to the point where we're pre-marking exhibits, submitting exhibit lists. So it's very easy for the board and the public to see, okay, here's the 15 exhibits that we're planning on introducing tonight. We'll mark them, P1, P2 as they're introduced. They're all on the website in line. So, there's really no confusion because the springing last minute is not something that is appreciated by boards, and not something that I think either the board or the applicant wants to do, because appeals are now more potential than ever, and the rules are fluid.
So when we go back to in person, do they still have to do the 2-day warning, or are they allowed to do what they used to do and bring a new exhibit to our attention that night?
Well, again, so anything that they plan to introduce should be on file 10 days before. Those were the old rules. If we're going to completely do away with virtual, presumably, I think that boards have been more willing to say, oh, okay, this is something you'd like to present to us, and maybe give it a little more leeway. That may not happen as much going forward, but certainly something we're going to have to consider.
I just want to make
see
sure
what
that
the
we're
rules say at that point.
I just want to make sure we continue to be business friendly. If there's a minor elevation change or something they want to present.
Yep.
I mean, that's the nature of design, is things change constantly until it's actually in stone.
It is. I mean, I think that if we follow the pattern of, if there's a completeness letter that's issued, or there's a technical review letter that's issued that says A, B, and C need to be addressed, and that technical review letter is issued, well in advance of a meeting, that the applicant should try their best to provide to the board copies of whatever it is they're planning on introducing. Some of the difficulties come when the review letters are closer to the meetings, and it becomes an impossibility to comply with those requirements. So, that's where we need to, look at the business friendly aspect, look to see what the board really feels that they need for purposes of properly deciphering and making a determination, which was easier in the in-person age because everyone was there. Everyone was able to take a look. This is obviously much different. And when we get back to that hopefully soon, it would be something for us to look at. And we can always require more than what the law requires. So we can, always create what it is that we feel we need. I don't know if the law will change again once we come back in person. We'll see. But, the statute is what it is right now.
All right. Well, the last thing I just want to say to that is sometimes often applicants will come in and change things for the better. If they get some sort of feedback, they'll change something minor that really affects the design in a positive way, but it's a minor change. And I just don't want applicants to feel like, oh, I don't want to you know, I can't change anything last minute or propose a change last minute, because I think we would be doing the borough and the design a disservice if we don't at least give them the opportunity to, and you know, again, it's being business friendly as well.
Right, but the other piece of that, Susan, honestly, is that if someone comes in and says, yeah, we got a review letter from the engineer, from the planner, HPC, whoever it is, and says, you know, they can absolutely give testimony on the record at the hearing and say, we didn't have time to prepare the drawing, but we absolutely will, and this happens regularly, as you all know, we are definitely going to adjust the height, adjust the material, adjust the whatever for this, and we will provide those drawings either to the board at a continued hearing or to the borough's professionals and so on and so forth. Like, and I know that may be adequate, you know, to handle those kinds of situations without us getting too far stuck in the weeds. I just want to make sure Dave hasn't said anything and Mark hasn't said anything. So is there do either of you have anything you want to add?
I agree with the going full digital. At work, we have a lot of drawings and stuff, and we've converted all of our stuff up, and each person has access to like a network through VPN or something, and eliminates having paper storage all around. So I'm in 100% agreement of going digital.
I would also say that Susan had brought it up earlier about the electronic signatures. They're valid, but I think probably what you're looking for is that when you're ready to do the final drawings that have to go to your various code office and these sorts of things, you may still want to go back to a hard copy.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking about those things. I mean, that has to be physical copy. There's got to be copies on record. There's got to be construction drawings. There's got to be, you know, the sewer guys have to be able to have a piece of paper in their hand and go out on the site. Inspectors need to go see where the utilities are run. Like that stuff, I don't think that's beyond our control almost. That's code enforcement and construction code stuff. We're really trying to narrow this just to the process of application and approval, right? Like what do we need to make that as you know, not only ecological, but also conducive to applicants who want to do good things. So
well, that's what I'm saying is we can put that in writing. What Jim is saying is we can say in the statement that we're writing, saying they can be digital. They don't have to, you know, even the hard copies that are submitted to the environmental committee don't have to have a physical stamp. Somebody doesn't
right. Because right now it does say sign and stamped, and we can
exactly. So if we
right,
can actually take that back, and that will save the applicants a lot of time, energy, and frustration, frankly. So right. I think we should add that in there to help them.
Dave, was there anything you wanted to add?
I apologize if my baby makes any noise. He's right next to me. But no, I mean, going full digital makes complete sense. It just seems like that's an inevitability. If it doesn't happen this year, it's going to happen within the next few. It's just how everything's trending. Besides, you know, the people who need paper, like Mayor, Driver, and you just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm fine with 100% digital. I've been up on that dais way too many times where we're not only locking our chairs, but our elbows. I think the only thing that we have to be cognizant of is when it reminds me of like teenagers at the dinner table, when everybody's looking down at a device, it is a little off-putting to the public. I mean, it's, we've been there before. That's when we got called out. If you remember, there was a member of the press saying, what are you looking at? What do you look, you know, but that was again, pre-COVID. Not understanding that we have digital copies of everything, not understanding that when we're looking at our iPad, we're actually looking at borough documents. But I think that could be easily overcome by just explaining what we're doing.
Okay, we have other things on the agenda, and I think I'm hearing where we're at with this. I think there are still some open questions for further work. We're not going to resolve this 100% tonight. I'm going to reach out to everyone else on that checklist and just with an email and just say, this is the discussion, what do you need? You know, planning, engineer, traffic, you know, water, sewer, the list. I'll also reach out and maybe Jeremy, you can help me with this with the appropriate liaisons HPC environmental shade tree, just to make sure that, you know, and it may actually be that having a digital submission, because again, let me be very clear. No one is sitting with pencil and paper drawing their drawings by hand anymore. It's all being created.
It's so sad. I loved those old drawings. It's so sad.
Yeah, except I gotta tell you, my son who's doing the engineering classes at the high school, he literally does it in CAD, takes a piece of paper, puts it over his CAD drawing, and then does this over it. Don't tell the engineering professor, teacher.
Nice.
But everyone's creating this stuff digitally anyway. So giving them the ability to just email us the PDF is, you know, like that's easy. And if it might be adequate for the commissions to say, when you meet physically in Borough Hall, there is a copy in Borough Hall for not only, you know, for your use, if you want to spread it out on the table as you're sitting around the table. Because I remember Environmental Commission years ago, we used to do that. We just have the plan out. Everyone's kind of looking around, and that will be available regardless. But we are also going to give you just digital copy, you know, a digital version of what's ever for review. I think that we could. I don't think it's not going to be 0, but I think if we can get 25 down to a dozen, you know, that's a huge savings in time, energy, and money. And if we say that once we're back in person, you know, 11 by sets of 11 by 17 hard copies for members of the board for their review, maybe something we can think through. But
I want to go on record, not 11 by 17, but half size sets. They still need to be to scale. So half size sets.
To Susan's point, there is a technical difference.
There is a big difference
between that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Half size sets are to a scale.
Mhm.
So
okay, so half size set. We'll call it that. That's fine. I'm a planner. I don't do engineering, and I don't do.
And you know, if we're going to keep having this discussion, not to, you know, get too global, but the other thing too is with larger applications, there's a lot of different requirements. So there's also a possibility that instead of, let's say we bring it from 25 to 12, maybe you only need 4 copies of a stormwater management report or 4 copies of a soil erosion sediment control report. You know, something along those lines where
that was the other thing I wanted to get to. Thank you for reminding me, Kara, because in addition to plans, there are also copies of the application, right? There's you know, our actual application. There are copies of any reports given in support of application, letters of no interest from commissions, boards, like all of those documents. I don't see any reason why those can't be, you know, a digital submission, other than maybe a couple of hard copies for, you know, public review and a couple for the record. Right?
I assumed we were referring to all of those things when we were saying digital submissions.
Well, what I'm saying is that we can probably knock it down further for those other items. Like if we say it's a dozen copies of plans, we may say we only need 4 stormwater management reports, hard copy, the rest can be digital. You know, because even Clerico is probably reviewing a digital version of an SMP. You know, it's not, as opposed to you know, the physical plans themselves, right? So I think that there's some room there too. Okay, good. Thank you all for this. This has been very helpful. We're going to keep moving on this. I'm going to say, Eileen, that we are not going to put this on the agenda for next meeting. I anticipate a full agenda the next meeting. I'd like for us for the first meeting in February, by that point, to kind of be able to have nailed some of this stuff down. And if folks have additional thoughts, please send me a note, and we'll go on that. Okay. Moving on to virtual meeting procedures. This one was probably a little bit easier to talk through. Kara was going to look at some other towns because this was brought up last night, but I will say, and this was circulated, right, Eileen, from council from last night to everybody on the board?
Yes, it was.
I saw it.
Yeah, so it was later in the afternoon, and it just came through from council. Council adopted a resolution last evening on a commenting policy for remote meetings, which was attached to that, and it kind of is, you know, kind of lays out the things that we were talking about. So, Kara, what's what did you find from other planning boards? And the other question I'm going to throw out there is, are we covered by council's action? And do we need to do anything further? Does council's policy, because it says Borough of Flemington, does that cover us just as a blanket borough body? And do we need to take any further action?
I would say we should be taking our own action.
Okay.
We do it with everything else. And I would also say that it makes sense. I reviewed it. Everything looks great. You know, Tara did a fabulous job. So it would make sense to me to have the same type of requirements, same type of plan. That way we don't run afoul of anything, but we should most certainly do our own, because this covers the borough and council and their meetings. So we should do the same. Unless
Okay.
anybody has any changes, thoughts, comments.
Susan, please.
I just wanted to know, we did go do an extensive like kind of rules of engagement this summer. Did anybody, this came so late in the day, I didn't get a chance to compare what we did over the summer with the stuff, what's here. Is there any conflicts or, you know, I mean, I think we need to look at what we had already put in place last summer and make sure that we either want to reconsider what we did last summer and incorporate exactly what the council recommended here, or, you know, I don't know, revise, take on the councils in some way and adjust it accordingly.
This is specifically about remote meetings, right? So
I know, but I think we did address some of this in the rules of engagement
Yeah,
last summer.
because our bylaws had a whole this section about
Right.
public
I
comment.
just want to make
so-
sure there's no conflicts.
Okay, Mayor, please.
Yeah, so Susan, this came about for council because we were seeing where people were putting fake names in or putting insulting names in, and it really kind of, it came about mostly when we went to the webinar versus the meeting, because you can't see the people. When people see, you know that we can see them if they have their camera on, whatever, it's, you know, they tend not to do it. But the webinar invited mischief. And so this was a reaction to that.
Oh, and I think it's great. Please don't get me wrong. I just
And
want to
it's a
make sure that we're
and
not
it's a-
conflicting with
And it's a
ourselves.
resolution that will go away, obviously, once we're back meeting in person, and resolutions also do expire at the end of the year.
Okay.
Or when they're undone by resolution. It's not an ordinance. So if planning board were to adopt something, even if there's a little bit of conflict with the previous commenting policy, at least have I'm speaking at you regarding, you know, with my council hat on, with my mayor hat on, that it shouldn't, because it should just, it's a temporary.
Got it. That's good. That's really good.
Tara, go ahead.
And Susan, I did just take quickly, I have the rules of citizen input in front of me. All of those have to do with in person. There's nothing there that's virtual, so this could easily supplement that. I'll make a note to take a look at our bylaws as well, make sure there's nothing there. I think that this supplements it, again, from a virtual standpoint, but let's just double check and make sure that there's nothing there that conflicts. And if there is, that we make sure we address it.
Great. Thank you.
So what I would like for us to do, though, this I would like to put on next meeting's agenda, because I don't think it'll take that long to get there. Towards the top of the agenda, if we could, before other items that may, and applicants that may come on. And again, I think that unless there's any further discussion, I think it'll just kind of serve us well just to have this in place sooner rather than later. Okay. Excellent. Thank you all for that good discussion. We are up to item 10, chair items. I have a couple of things here. First off, the directory that Eileen circulated to everybody, and a few of you responded. Please just take a moment, make sure your information is correct. Please make sure your preferred phone number is on there. Email is obviously your borough email address, or your professional one for the professionals. And then as soon as that's, I want to give everybody until maybe another week or so. And then Eileen will just recirculate that by email, and that'll just be that. And I don't think that needs any other discussion. It's fairly straightforward. We do this every year. I will remind everyone that your borough email address is subject to all open meeting requests, and you should only be doing borough business on your borough email address. And then the other one that I had was, and I want to thank Todd for sending this to me this morning, committee assignments. I want to talk about that here under chair items. So the committees that were, I'm going to do this out of, Todd, I'm not following your order because there's a reason to my madness here. So there was a Census 2020 committee that was Susan, Karen, and Brian. I find no need for us to have a Census 2020 committee go in 2021. All things from 2020 should be assigned to the dustbin of history, and we should move forward. So we're not gonna worry about that one. There is a rules and bylaws committee that I think that work has been done, right? Unless we need to have a standing committee on the perpetual updating of rules, but I think I'm okay with that having served its purpose, and thanking Mark and everyone else who worked on that, and we can move on from that one. There is on here a borough website on behalf of the planning board. Brian was working with Jeremy on that. I'm going to ask you both, is there any reason to continue that work? Where does that stand?
That was pending. Well, have we switched over to the new borough website yet, or what's this timetable on that? Because we had submitted some information that was going to be incorporated in the new website redesign.
Yeah, I hope it's going to be this week. I'm not really sure what the problem is and what the holdup is. I'm trying to investigate that.
Okay.
So I would hold. So Jeff, to answer your question, I would still hold that until we have the new website up and going, so we can make sure we have the planning board content the way we want it.
Okay, so then because this is not a committee by ordinance, just to be safe, because we're in a new calendar year, as chair, I'm going to designate Brian to work with Jeremy, our council liaison, on the website for 2021 or until the work is done.
Excellent.
All right, Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that we did note that, we knew that the new website was coming in, but we wanted to incorporate our initial thoughts, but then we thought about things like a bubble diagram being added. So there were other goals that we knew we wanted to address after the website was, so it definitely should keep it for
So we're
no other reason but that.
Okay, so we're going to keep Brian working with Jeremy on that, and thank you both for doing that. Okay, the next one that I want to get to is parking and traffic. That was Jim working with Jay and with Mike. Where is that at? Jim, can you, if you're talking, unmute yourself.
There we go. Okay, I'm on. Basically, I think we got caught up in the issues with COVID and so on like that. We had a couple of meetings, but I think with the master plan going forward, we really need to zero in on coordinating between the traffic as we see it at the planning board, the council, and also FPC, because when I was in one meeting with FPC, they were all over the place compared to where we were with looking at where parking was. So I think we need to coordinate across the, two different things over to the borough, and to which we could do very easily through the borough engineer, and then sit down with FPC and see if how that fits into what they think their plans are for the same thing.
Susan, good.
I also wanted to note one of the things that I think that this subcommittee will really want to be addressing this year that they wouldn't have been able to address last year is because the Union Hotel final site plan review has, is still pending submission to us. I think there's going to be perhaps some recommendations from this board to council regarding some of the public streets and right of ways and which direction things are going in as a result of that final site plan application. It's not things that the applicant would need to be doing, but maybe things that the council may want to, look at. And I think that Jim and and that subcommittee would really be helpful to be able to pull their expertise into that when the time comes.
So let me ask this question. I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead. Oh, that was just okay. I mean, I'm just gonna ask a process question though, and I've specifically not mentioned the master plan subcommittee yet. Is not this work rolled into the circulation and transportation element of the master plan?
Yes, it is.
Sure.
So my question is, and because I wasn't on the board at this point when this got started last year, Todd or Susan, what was the rationale to have a separate group working on this element of the master plan as opposed to it being part of the larger work of looking at the circulation element?
Yeah, we really felt that this would have been a precursor to the master plan, and we thought we could launch it quicker, and we thought we could look at it. It could be a separate function, and almost have two simultaneous things going on, just divide and conquer. It absolutely can be rolled into the master plan. We just wanted to make sure that Jim and Mike, who had the most expertise in this area, could work with Jay on it. And absolutely, it would be a subcommittee of a master plan, if you will.
So that's actually what I'd rather us do then. If this is where we are right now, because we are still going to do the master plan update, I would like for there to be, I'd like to kind of roll these two things together. And so part of the master plan committee will be a group working on the circulation element, which is what we call it in New Jersey, and have Jim and Mike and Jay continue to work kind of in concert with that as kind of a subgroup, if that's okay with everybody.
That's fine.
Okay. And that brings us to.
Hey, Jeff, can I just interrupt real quick on that?
Yeah, Mayor, please.
We have no guidance on there. So, Jamie, you mentioned about, trying to meet with the FCP on it and things getting a little circular. I'm going to recommend that if you do that, you loop in a board member or two. I'm not sure who the chair of the board is this year. I know Bob King is on there, and that may help keep things on track for you.
I totally agree. And I think that they've readjusted their board, right? I mean, They
had board elections. I mean, I've been trying to get them. One of the things when I first became mayor is I wanted to replace the signs and put up blue international parking signs, around town, because, as we all say, we have parking, but we don't advertise it very well. And then they got involved and things 2 years later, year and a half later, here we are. No signs have been replaced. So, and Mike Campion can attest to this. I'm not going to ask him to attest to it, but so well, I think just, broaden out that meeting with them, and perhaps that way you'll be able to get that accomplished.
And the main thing is also that we have to really run it through your borough engineer at the same time, because those public roads are the responsibility of council.
Yes, they are.
And so whatever we're doing, we have to coordinate it and have a meeting with him, with FPC at the same time to, to really lay out where we want to go for the master plan.
I would actually encourage you to meet with the borough engineer without FCP. I think you should do that meeting first with Jim and Mike and Jay and the borough engineer.
Yes.
And then
I'm going to ask you to include Jeremy in that too, so he can report back to council on that.
That's fine.
That's no problem. That's good. Okay.
And working with the FCP will also give you, I believe that they are looking at different grants and things. And I know that they have also done work to your circular conversation. I know for a fact that they went through and tagged parking and had, their own studies, if you will, done just from volunteers. So we would get maybe some grant money there from a production perspective, not necessarily a master plan.
Yeah, so that grant money though has to be applied for by the council through the county.
Okay, so that's why
money. That's not, I mean, the other grant money, I wouldn't count on the FCP actually applying for that. And the county does offer some grants, and I've talked to them previously about grant money for a parking study and got kind of a lukewarm reception to it.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing a parking study since kind of 2019.
Yep, we just
Yeah.
never have the money for it.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll get you some grad students. No,
Nice.
I'm kidding.
We start
Okay.
budget meetings coming up soon.
You heard him promise.
No, I didn't promise. I got 2 other studio projects. Okay, that leads us into the master plan committee, which last year was Todd, Susan, and Brian. Obviously, that work got put on hold, but it has to happen, right? And I'm chair of the planning board, so by whatever, I'm ex officio on any committee. But I'm kind of inserting myself into that one. I'm not a transportation planner. I'm a community and economic development person. So I'm gonna be into that committee as well. But I think that I'd like for that committee to not only kind of be working on the stuff that we all know that's out there, but to think about other elements of our master plan that we may want to pull some other volunteers into to work on this. So we have a housing element, which is what it is, and by statute, and I think Beth literally is one of the experts in the state of New Jersey on this. So I would not ever question Beth McManus on housing. So we're gonna leave her alone on that. I'm not worried about that. And we've got a group working on the transportation circulation element. But there are other folks who we may want to broaden when we're talking about the sustainability element, when we're talking about, the other stuff about land use and things are kind of more straightforward. Those are the things that I'd like to make sure that we're hitting. So I know that there's some applications coming down the road for us to review in the next few weeks, in months. But after that, we need to do this. So, my charge to everyone is that I'd like for all the committees to meet and report back as to where things are and what your plan is at the first meeting in February. I want us to, so that means have a meeting before then, or an email conversation or whatever the case is. I'm not worried about a quorum. We'll keep these to where they need, just to be cognizant of the law there. But there's a lot of work to do. Susan, then Todd.
I can't, you'll have to forgive me, Jeff. I don't remember, because you rejoined the planning board last year, I think after we discussed this. So we definitely need to have a master plan subcommittee kind of meeting between now and the first meeting in February. I think that's great. We kind of did map out exactly what you're saying, that, we can pull in this person to write this element, pull this person in from that element. I had volunteered to write the educational element, since that's my kind of background with writing, all the long range plans for the schools. And we had identified all that. So I think during our meeting, I can kind of bring you up to speed on that, but we actually did that first step, and then COVID hit pretty much.
Right now,
Okay.
I would suggest we include one of our, at least Beth, so we can get, like Betsy said, Mayor said, we really need a budget. We need to submit to the council that we need this money, or it's not going to happen again for the second year in a row.
Which is
Right,
why
and that's why we had identified specific people to do specific things, because we said, okay, she had given us a budget already, right? I don't want to step on.
Yeah,
your
we have a
toes,
proposal
Betsy.
from her.
We already have a proposal from her, and what we said was, okay, well, we can save the money by this person writing this and this person writing this, or at least the first pass. So I think we need to first pull that budget out and figure out and give you an update as to what we had planned.
Right, which is why I want this done by the first meeting in February, because that's when council starts having budget hearings. And I want Jeremy to be able to go to council with that in the appropriate time frame, so it gets rolled into that conversation.
Jeff, I can set you up, or if you want, for one of the budget meetings. I'm scheduling them right now.
Okay.
So I want to add in, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting.
No.
We've got this center designation stuff that's kind of floating out there that Kendra was working on. But it, it just, with COVID, it became hard. The deadline kept getting kicked down the road. And then I ended up, last time I talked with Kendra on it, I ended up getting conflicted out with the state which got kind of weird. But that's a conflict that still exists. So I don't know. It has to be a member of the governing body. So I don't know if Jeremy, if we want to dump something else on Jeremy, or if he's going to like revolt at that point.
Well, I mean, the logical person is Jeremy as the council's liaison to the planning board. But if there's another member of council who would like to do it, I'm going to leave Jeremy to talk to your colleagues. But
yeah, I don't know. That's a conversation that we'll have to have with Beth and see where it's at. I don't really know where it's at. I can also ask for a conflict exemption on this situation because it doesn't really impact my other job, but there was just some concern.
Right, but we want to, we'll let's ask Beth and see where that is. Yeah, Susan.
Yeah, before this meeting, Jeff and I chatted, and I mentioned to Jeff about that really kind of great kind of planning meeting for the year that Todd and myself and you, Mayor, and Beth and Kendra had last year. We kind of planned out the whole year, and we had all these grand plans for 2020. If you remember, that was a great meeting. And so I suggested,
the only thing I had to do was go to Homestead Pizza afterwards.
Yeah, at any rate, I suggested to Jeff that we do the same. So I think, and one of the things we discussed at length at that meeting was the center design, the center designation goals that we had. So I think let's put that on our agenda for that kind of kickoff meeting. Me, Jeff, you, and Beth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we need to, so one of the benefits of that, and Jeff, I guess you guys would know, but for those who don't, is that allows us kind of to tap into some other additional grant stuff from DCA. It's money and special attention. And so like, if we need something done, we can actually go to them. We need some GIS mapping done rather than us having to pay for it. That's an asset that we can take from the state that they'll do for us once we have that center designation.
Okay, so Jeff and I will kind of try to figure out a date that will work for all of us.
Yeah, Beth already reached out to me about this, about having that kind of meeting anyway. So we're going to do that. Good. All right. The other two, HPC streamlining.
That was me, I think. I think I was on that
That was Susan, Brian, Don, and John Hatch. So
I don't want to speak for Brian, but honestly, the problems were solved once Don kind of really streamlined things with, we did give some recommendations, but I don't think we need that anymore. But okay, I can speak to Brian, I'd like to get his feedback.
No, it's done. We're good. We don't have to have it. I'm not trying to make more work for people.
I think Don Echo, this is done probably 2 years ago, if not 3. No, 2 years ago. It was 2019. And, there was some draft recommendations issued, nothing ever formal, but I believe when Don Eccles stepped in, he's taken a lot of that. So I don't see a need to pursue that going forward.
Done. Excellent. All right. Excellent. Last one on the list is sign review. Now that's done by ordinance, which is why I wanted to leave that one for last, because that's a little bit different. So by ordinance, it is, Kara, do you have the ordinance by any chance of what that is? You did.
I might have it if you don't, Kara. Let me look.
I actually think I have the Flemington ordinances somewhere saved here.
Yeah, it's in that code share, but I think I have a copy on somewhere. I don't want to misspeak, and I know that we made it very specific when we wrote it. I might slow down a bit. I'm just going on code share on the background here.
Mine's not loading. Kara, do you have it?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
All right, so I've got section 2631. And this is the one we amended this June 10th, 2019. That was the last amendment.
Okay, so by ordinance, who is on the sign review committee?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay.
I know, I don't know why it's not coming up either. Oh, here we go.
Here we go. I got it. Section 12. Yep.
You were equally as fast as I was.
A committee, established committee shall be empowered. The committee may utilize professionals of the board to assist. The committee will report annually. That's the definition of sign review committee. I don't have any specific people in here.
All right. Let me
Todd, what did you find?
Yeah, no, it's the same thing, but we,
What chapter?
I remember we wrote it as chair or designee, 2 other planning board members, FCP representative, and HPC representative. That's the way we had written it.
You said it was the chair of the planning board, 2 planning board members. Who
And
else?
then it was FCP, well, what you had said, any economic development entity of the borough and a representative thereof, and a representative from the Historic Preservation Committee.
And those are the 5 people that constitute that?
And that was the 5 people that I believe what we did was we took off the things like, because it used to say Economic Development Committee and things
Oh,
like.
God, yes. Okay, yeah, I remember that. All right. Okay, so assuming that that's what it is, and we'll confirm.
I'm going to find it while you're talking, Jeff.
Yeah, so assuming that that's what it is, for the moment, the people that were on it last year, FCP was Robin Lapidus, Don Eckel was HPC. The 2 planning board members were Dave and Mark. So let me ask here, Mark and Dave, do you wish to continue to serve on the sign review committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm happy leaving you there. Todd, is this something you're invested in, or because I'm happy to designate you if you want to be the person on the sign
Yeah,
review
I would
committee?
really, in talking with even the FCP and looking at what we really could do from an aesthetic perspective, I'd like to volunteer more time. I know on the last application, I actually took a sign, took it into Photoshop, gave my recommendations, instead of just saying yay or nay, really trying to offer guidance to our applicants. And I'd much rather spend time on doing things like that with from a volunteer perspective, because it's my what I do. It's what I do nationwide. So
Okay, so Kara, this is what I want to ask of you. The ordinances in New Jersey that say mayor or mayor's designee, council, like for example, in terms of like the member of the class 1 member of the planning board is mayor or mayor's designee.
Yep.
And it allows for the mayor literally at any given moment to decide who their designee is. It could be meeting by meeting. It doesn't have to be a standing person.
It can be.
Right,
Yep,
can
it,
be.
it could be overall, it could be for a period of time, or it could, like you said, be meeting by meeting.
Right. So does this fall under that rule, or would I as chair designate somebody in my stead for the year? Like what would be the proper procedure here? Because I'm happy to let Todd just do it, but if it's more like the class 1 kind of standard, I would technically need to still be copied on all of the sign committee applications, and then, having designated Todd to also be doing it. And I also could just say for 2021, I don't need to be copied on the emails, and then I'm designating Todd to be my person. So I'd like for us, maybe you can look into that offline and find out what the answer is.
Yep.
I mean, because I want to keep Todd's expertise there, if we can.
Yep. Agreed. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Um,
I'm looking here, section, if we look right now, just for purposes of if everybody else wants it, section 1401 of the ordinance. That's where we talk about the sign review committee and who's on it. So that's where that's located.
Oh, well, it's 1631, is that what you said?
1401,
1401.
it's under the powers and jurisdictions of the planning board.
correct.
Sign review committee, there it is. Planning
Got
board
me.
chair or designee, 2 members of the planning board appointed by the planning board chair, 1 member of HPC appointed by the HPC, 1 member of FCP appointed by FCP chair. Chair of the sign review shall be the planning board chair or designee. Okay. I'm looking at this now.
The term of each SRC member shall be 1 year or the expiration, vacancies, removal, conflict.
Okay, so technically speaking, if these folks were appointed at the beginning of last year, everyone needs to be reappointed. So I'm asking Eileen, can you send a note to the chair of the HPC and the FCP chair, which is different than the executive director, and ask them who they want to be their people for 2021, and we'll go from there.
Okay, but I thought, Mayor Driver, you had said that we didn't know who the chair was for is that something that has taken place, or have they?
The chair of the HPC or the FCP. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, and it might just be, it's most likely brain fade. I'm sure I've been told, but I don't remember. But if somebody just reaches out to Robin, they'll be able to tell you who they
Right, but it's gotta come. I don't. If the FCP board chair wants to have Robin do it, that's fine. But it's their call to make, not ours.
So we just need to get Robin to find out who the chair of the board is.
Yeah, that's all.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Give Robin a call and ask who the
Designate
chair is.
whoever.
Right. And HPC is having its reorg meeting on the 20th. So as soon as that's done, we'll be able to have that. But Kara, is it okay, absent having those folks official, to if a sign application comes in like we did previously, we had the previous committee review it so as to not put a burden on an applicant. Is that kosher?
I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
To reappoint for purposes of whatever may come in while we're trying to make those final decisions.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right. So that's what we're gonna do.
I'm actually just looking. There looks like there's a tap into article December 11th that talks about the annual board of directors for the FCP has been certified by the clerk. I don't see a reference to the actual board, but we could figure that out. Okay.
All right, Susan, you've got your hand up there nicely.
A quick question, I guess, point of clarification is, or I guess that's what you ask. The HPC position, are they only, you have to remind me because I've never been involved in the signage committee. Does the HPC representative only review signs in the historic district, or does the
No.
committee only review signs in the historic district? They review signs in the entire borough, right?
No, well, they're specific. It really is downtown business 2, Village Origins Shopping, TR, PO, TC. I think it's all but highway.
Okay, so
And-
that would make sense for them to be involved in everyone.
And all redevelopment areas is in the
Okay. Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't involving the HPC, for
Well, let me
giving
be
them
clear,
more
we're
work
not-
to do that they shouldn't be involved in.
But we're not involving the HPC. We're involving a person to sit on the review committee.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
And we're not
yes.
asking the whole FCP to look at signs. We're asking for them to designate a person to serve on the review committee. So it's not like they're going to take the application back to HPC.
I understand that. I just
right?
want to make sure that we're not involving the HPC for no reason,
Although
for
they do,
not
with this,
necessary.
now we streamlined the ordinance last year or 2 years ago, whenever we did it, to not have HPC, because even with the last chair, when Don participated, he does reference on behalf of the HPC, because he is representing it. If he wants to take it back before he gives an answer, that's up to him. But this ordinance allows for the HPC to designate him so that there's not a full HPC review like there was last time.
I think that's where my question stemmed from, because I remember that conversation. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't, overburdening the applicant for no reason.
And Eileen, the new chair of the board is Kim Ward Bosco of River Valley Realty.
So Eileen, if you could send a note to them, and just, you can copy me, just saying that I want to, who their person is for the sign review committee, and that you can mention that it had been Robin Lapidus last year, but the ordinance allows for it to be the chair of the FCP to designate who's on that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. The only other thing I have under chair items, I want to come to next meeting in a second. Susan, did you have anything that you wanted to add at this point?
Only that I still have that Ag Waste Subcommittee meeting on Thursday with the mayor, so I'll give an update on that next time.
Okay. Then the next meeting is scheduled for January 26th. That's our second meeting of January. Eileen had sent around, Eileen, what do we have coming that we know of?
There was an application submitted for 91 Main. So I will be sending that out. Well, I've distributed the electronic copies to everyone. They have asked to be on for completeness on the 26th. And then I do anticipate another one that has not been submitted at this point. So I anticipate another submission tomorrow. They were supposed to be here today, but there was a snafu.
And that's Courthouse Square. I mean, that we can say, if they've reached out to you, then we can say that much.
Yes, they were anticipating submission today, this afternoon, and I guess it's going to be late morning tomorrow.
And again, that would be for completeness, or is that a preliminary?
That is for completeness, I believe, Kara. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're anticipating 2 completeness applications for deeming completeness on the 26th agenda.
Correct.
Plus Lee Roth.
I don't know what the.
No, that's including Lee Roth. That is Lee Roth.
That's Lee.
Lee Roth is
Oh, I'm sorry.
Lee Roth and
Courthouse
Square.
Okay.
If they get it in now, that's obviously 2 weeks out. They've got another day or two to get it in to make their notice requirement, but that's okay.
Well, Jeff, they won't have to notice for completeness, so they've got a little bit more leeway, but Bob obviously needs to have enough time to review everything and feel comfortable making whatever recommendations he's got. So
okay, I would like, if we could, Eileen, as we're putting the agenda together, obviously we want to put that resolution for the digital participation early in the agenda. I'd like for us I'd also like for us to, if we could, put 91 Main ahead of Courthouse Square on the agenda for completeness, because there will be people who need to recuse themselves, and I want them to participate in the first part of the meeting, and then they could recuse and be done for the night. I'd like, if we could at all possible, not done, but they could step off, because there will be people who are going to recuse themselves from the Courthouse Square application.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I also, Mayor and Councilman Long, the 91 Main is a D variance. It's a use variance. And so just as they were in here before, you'll both have to step off for those. So Mayor, you'll have a short meeting. Jeremy, you'll have to stick around for the other application. And Eileen, is there anything else that you anticipate that you've heard or seen?
No, nothing at all.
Not that it's not a full agenda. I'm just.
No, those are the items that I am aware of at this point.
Okay.
Hey, Eileen, I think I misread the article. I'm not sure they voted on what they call president, because the article now, I'm reading another article. So you need to reach out to Robin. I'm not sure.
All right, thanks, Todd.
Depends on what article you read from what day. And
Yeah,
Yeah, it was confusing to me too. I agree.
yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
it's okay. We'll square it out. It's fine. That's not a problem. So I think we've covered everything there. If there's nothing else, we can move on to item 11. I need a motion and a second to audit the bills.
I'm sorry, Chairman. There were no bills for this meeting. I
Oh.
tried to keep it on just in case there's, something that comes up the day of the meeting. So
No bills, even better. Move on. Kara, do you have any professional report to give?
I do not.
I have not gotten anything from the engineer planner or the traffic engineer. Eileen, you haven't heard anything from them about reports?
no, I have not.
Okay. Kara, do we have any need to retire to executive session?
Not tonight.
Okay. Is there, I'm going to recognize Todd Cook to make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion we adjourn.
Nice.
Second.
Roll call, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all. I do want to say, and we're out of business, but I just want to say, I want to thank everybody for good discussion tonight on some important stuff that'll help us going forward in what will hopefully be a busier year with applicants as we come out of COVID. And we've got some work to do. But I think spending the time here is good in January so that we can get things moving where they need to go. So I want to thank everyone for their work on committees and we've got some good stuff going on. So thank you all and have a good night.
Good night, all.
Good night,
everybody.
everyone. Stay
Take care.
safe.